Dobrý deň, vítame vás späť v našom štúdiu. Po prestávke pokračujeme v našej konferencii.
Welcome back. We are now in the last panel of the conference focused on participation of foreigners in the municipality. Participation and its different forms is an important tool to make the minority groups equal. Even though the number of foreigners is increasing, their participation, whether political or civic, wasn't in the spotlight so far. But the participation is a great tool to strengthen the sense of belonging and the integration. Participation is mainly discussed only on the political level, but it has various forms, and these forms will be discussed with our guests. So allow me to give the floor to Gregory Fabian, who is a lawyer specialized in human rights. Gregory is from the United States of America, but he has been living in Slovakia since 1993, and in his presentation he will introduce the processes and models of participation of foreigners.
Thank you, Alena. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I'm good. Can everyone see my presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Just a second. Share screen.
Perfect.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
You can. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, and I'll put it on full screen. Now, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this. I'm here as an American immigrant as well as a human rights lawyer. I'm going to give basically a list of considerations for how municipalities can promote a dialogue platform to enable political participation of foreigners. Now, I'm going to emphasize this from a human rights compliance standpoint. I always believe that human rights should be the basis for any law, regulation, policy, or procedure, whether it be municipality, national government, or whatever. The next slide, just a minute. So my objective is to give you a human rights compliance basic checklist. Now, here are some standards to consider. The italicized standards are the ones that I found that have been most beneficial in looking at some of the ideas on how to form a dialogue platform, specifically a consultative dialogue platform. Common basic principles of immigrant integration, of course, are the basis. EC Handbook and Integration is quite good as well. I found particularly the Council of Europe document on social participation to be very valuable. And the European White Paper on intercultural dialogue that was spoken about earlier today was very, very good discussion today. And I think that that perhaps some of the participants earlier today have used that paper in their preparation of the project. The Council of Europe Minority Handbook on Minority Consultative Mechanisms, that is specifically for national minorities. But many of the mechanisms they consider there can also be used as models for perhaps to create a foreigners consultative body as well. Okay. Now, first step certainly is to develop a strategy to plan an action specifically for creating a foreigner consultative platform. Certainly this involves a strategy, a plan of action, and a budget. It'd be very important how foreigners representatives will be chosen. If foreigners representatives are chosen by the government, there could be a problem versus the immigrant or foreigners organizations themselves choosing representatives, or perhaps the NGOs or other organizations that are representing them. Now, there's two types of basic consultative platforms. There's the informal consultative platform. This could be established for a particular ad hoc issue relating to foreigners and a problem they might have in the municipality, or a more formalized consultative body established by law. It has set policies and procedures. It has a budget. All the actors are identified and so on. It could be used, for example, in relation to perhaps there's another consultative body within the municipality or within regional government that could be used as a model as well. The rights and obligations, though, of both the municipal actors and the foreigners and organizations representing them should be carefully prescribed. They should be carefully written down and put into a founding document, if you will. And by the way, it's important to note that European Convention Article 16 allows the government to limit the political activity of aliens in a country. But I should also say that Article 53 says that the convention will not limit if the local government or if the national government wants to give more rights than are provided for in the European Convention on Human Rights. Okay, so it's also very important to know from a human rights perspective, rights and obligations. Now, some decisions that have to be made. First of all, the first two we've talked about, the aims, objectives of the dialogue structure, clear decision about financial and legal framework, but who are the dialogue partners? Now, also, will the legislative body within the municipality be the tiebreaker if there's a dispute that cannot be resolved, say, between the municipal body, I should say, between the municipal actors and the foreigners' consultative body? Also, it should be specified that civil servants, this is not a political issue. They should be apolitical in their dealing with the foreigners' bodies. So party affiliation should not come into it at all. Also, clearly distinguish between an advisory and representative body. An advisory body is a government-appointed body which may include foreigners, may not. It may include experts who are experts in immigration law and so on, but it's not necessarily representative. I'm talking here about a consultative body where foreigners can begin to participate in government and public affairs. Also, how will the government, to what part of the government will this consultative body be attached? Generally, for example, we would assume it might be the mayor in a municipality, but it also could be attached to some municipal department or a legislative body. But that decision has to be clear. And also, what stage should the consultation between municipal actors and foreigners start? Hopefully, it starts in the beginnings of the policymaking process, where the foreigners can have input and so on. Now, this is from, you notice from the London recommendations on effective participation of national minorities in public life. While this is about national minorities, many of these functions also could very well serve to make a consultative body for foreigners. You know, the right to raise issues with decision makers, prepare recommendations, formulate legislative and other proposals, monitor developments and provide views on proposed government, so on and so on. So this is an interesting paragraph to consider when establishing a consultative body for foreigners as well. Now, there's 4 stages to any successful dialogue platform. The first 2 we always focus on: agreement and preparation, needs assessment, and so on, hopefully with the foreigners themselves, dialogue and exchange, reflection. Now, reflection, reporting, and evaluation and action are sometimes the ones that are shortchanged. They're the ones that perhaps are not so well taken care of. It's important what are the results of the dialogue and exchange, and then evaluation and action. What actions will be taken in order to implement changes that might be necessary? Now, anytime anytime you have a foreigner participation policy, it should be mainstreamed through all parts of municipal government. not just through the mayor's office itself, but for example, housing and social protection authorities and social security authorities and so on. Everyone should be aware of this so that it better enables foreigners to be able to participate. Very important also to establish evaluation mechanisms for these platforms. Now, we've talked about benchmarks and goals. Structural indicators, they indicate what the government is committed to on paper. What do we write? What's our policy on paper? Process indicators is actually the efforts that governments actually extend, the actual efforts that governments extend to implement the policy. And finally, outcome indicators are an evaluation over a period of time whether the process is actually working or not. All right. So structural process and outcome indicators, these are also human rights indicators, are very important. Finally, diversity, equality, and non-discrimination should be an integral part. There should be, of any policy, should be clearly stated. These principles should be clearly stated within the policy document. And by the way, I like to always remind people that equality doesn't mean that government treats everyone the same. If it did, that could result in indirect discrimination. Government equality means the government treats everyone but takes care of the special needs of certain vulnerable, marginalized, and disadvantaged groups. That's true equality. Okay. Also, it is very important that there are effective legal remedies for foreigners should municipalities not comply at law or in practice with any participatory policy that they are implementing. Finally, these are some ways that foreigners can be empowered to participate. It's important. Mary Robinson, the former Commissioner of Human Rights, I should say, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, she said it's important that we empower people to participate in securing what they're entitled to. So this is how foreigners can be empowered. They can be empowered with the right to vote and also the right to be elected. They should have clear pathways for how they can acquire citizenship. They certainly, I really encourage people to look at consultative platforms which provide the opportunity to participate. More importantly, even as important, is how the knowledge of how to use these platforms. The platform is no good if people don't know how to use it. The principle behind the platform should be for both municipal actors and the foreigners themselves, nothing about us without us, all right? So in other words, we want to be consulted anytime there is a policy or procedure or law that may concern us. Also, I enjoyed the conversation this morning about financial support for language study. Now, it's very important that all resources on the municipal level become available to foreigners who perhaps through their own financial situation aren't able to take a continuous language study to enable. All resources should be made available, even perhaps if possible, some free language support for language study. Foreigners participate through the support of civil society organizations, immigrant organizations, and leaders in the immigrant community. And I heard the conversation about intercultural dialogue this morning again was music to my ears. This Council of Europe document on white paper on intercultural dialogue is very good on this subject. Finally, I just want to close by saying that participation of foreigners in the municipality can be very controversial. But the more I realize from my work when I work for the OSCE, the more that people can attain their rights, the more that governments respect and protect and fulfill rights, is the more that there is peace, security, and stability in not only the municipality, but in the region and within the nation and even between nations. Thank you for your attention.
Ďakujeme veľmi pekne, Gregory, za túto prezentáciu.
Thank you, Gregory, for your presentation and for defining the options how the foreigners can participate in the affairs and municipality and where they live, and for defining this as dialogue. So this is also in the international context, because this is often forgotten that there are international documents in place which define participation in a clear manner. It was said more times that foreigners in Slovakia are beneficial for the communities, and that they engage, they bring new perspectives, and they often initiate as various activities as well and make changes also. Now I would like to give floor to our second guest, Venus Jahanpour, living in Bratislava. She's from Iran, and she's the founder of Brilliant Stars School, focused or specialized in developing the skills of children using holistic approach. And Venus is very active citizen, and she will tell us more about the experience now. So you have the floor.
Thank you. I asked if I can speak English, even though I speak a little bit of Slovak, because when I speak English, I can say what I want instead of what I know. So it was a little bit hard for me to prepare this talk, because I often, unfortunately, do not feel like a foreigner, and I forget about this. It's a little bit like ageism. Until other people point out to you that you are actually older, you don't realize that you're older. So I generally have this experience, and I think it's partly also because of I have been raised in the Baha'i community, and I have been raised to understand that service is an integral part of life. So wherever I move, wherever I live, it doesn't matter for how long, I need to find ways of actually contributing towards the well-being of that city, of that space. And so for me, it has been very normal and natural to find ways to contribute. And I have expressed this before. I feel like inclusion, meaning that I am able and I'm given space to be able to do that contribution. And I think actually everybody in essence want to do that and feels happier to do that. And whenever all of us who are here in this forum are realize that whenever we are engaged in some sort of social action, sooner or later we need to contact local authorities and become very involved with them. So in that sense, all kinds of platforms become very important, and knowing how to approach. And Alena asked me to share some examples of why I started becoming engaged in this way. And I want to tell you a story that as I have a school, one day I overheard the cook in our school saying that she asked the municipality of, I live in Bratislava, with one local municipality. She asked them to give her some soil because she wanted to plant outside her home, the Panelak, the building. And I was very surprised that if one can really ask about these things to the municipality, and if they actually will contribute towards that. And I was surprised that she said, yes, it actually happened. At the time, I was engaged with my friends in Banská Bystrica, which is a town in the center of Slovakia, in some educational project that we were doing within a settlement, Roma settlement, at the outskirts of the city. And I decided to test this to see if it is really every municipality is such. And I wrote a letter to, I know that there are people from Banská Bystrica here, so I thought I'd tell this story. I decided to write a letter to the authorities, to the city hall, and tell them that in this settlement there is no playground for the children, and the children are playing in the dust and soil, and if there is any possibility they can help. I learned, of course, soon that the city had not built any playground for the last 10 years, and of course they would not have the finances to do it immediately there. And also all the Romas that I was working with, they try to convince me this is impossible. They will not do anything. The city will not do anything about this situation. But I decided to write a letter nevertheless. And I was very surprised, positive surprised, that actually from city authorities they came, we arranged meetings and so on. And eventually a playground appeared, an old one that was not used, but nevertheless a playground was brought there, and this was amazing because it built trust among the Romas who were living there, and actually my other friends who were engaged in this project, to see that it's possible, it's doable, and for me was also a proof that had I not heard this from the cook, I would not think that the city is there. It actually, even this small thing helped me to see that the city is, after all, is there to help the citizens who want to be engaged, and the city want to contribute. And I am sharing this story because I think most people, wherever we come from, I think maybe if we are from Scandinavian countries, it's a little bit different. But if I come from Iran or in Slovakia, this is the mindset, is that the city is not there for me, and this trust need to be built. So back in Bratislava, then I decided, now that I had tested in Banská Bystrica, I decided our school is very focused on climate change and environmental studies, and we had planted everything possible in our school garden, but we needed to go outside the garden, and we wanted to plant trees around the school and and I had contacted the city authorities before, and now this empowered me to do more, to try again and again. And of course it took a while, but we started writing and contacting the city authorities saying that we want to do such a thing, and eventually even meeting with the local mayor. And eventually, of course it took a while, but we got a permission to actually start planting trees outside in the neighborhood. And last year, when the SVEC and Nadacija Milana Šimečka, I think as part of this project of KapaCITY, they organized a lunch with the mayor of Bratislava. Then I could ask during this session, I could also ask the mayor why the city is not announcing a climate emergency, and why the mayor had decided to only plant 10,000 trees in the city, and why not 1 million trees, as I had seen on some Facebook sites that is being done. And as a result of this conversation, then he asked me to be joining the team of the city and planting more trees. We actually, 2 months ago, we planted 50 trees in the local neighborhood, and today I'm working with the city authorities and as part of my team to plant eventually in the next 2 or 3 years, I hope 2 years, the next 9,000 trees that is remain to be done. So this is just an example of how we can be engaged, and how I am thrilled that the city has actually invited, I think as a result of this platform that has been created, to be able to contribute in this way. I feel part of a good governance is to identify and to empower the local resources and the human resources that is available. Now, foreigners, to me, coming from a diverse cultures, they and we know that each culture has unique qualities, unique attributes, and I think as a local national government, we want to incorporate these unique qualities as soon as possible. In fact, the sooner the better, because before they are becoming assimilated and becoming like others. Because in a way, being a foreigner, you think a little bit out of the box because you are not in the box. And so I think I consider it is a good city and good city management when all these new resources are used as soon as possible. And a foreigner, of course, moving to a city, yes, has a lot of challenges, but is also full of anticipation and full of energy. So cities are clever when they try to incorporate this as soon as possible and enlist the support and contribution of the foreigners. The challenges I have faced in trying to engage in various levels is the challenge that I think even a Slovak citizen faces, and that is partly is the beside other things that have been mentioned in the conference, I would say the language, the jargon maybe that is used in the offices. You know, you think you know the language, but you go in and you don't understand what is said. So I want to really encourage to think about this, that and I know this is very typical, like whatever institution we are. I know as a headmaster of a school, I use a certain language that other people who are working here and day in, day out, they understand, but their parents who come in doesn't know what it means. And so I have to clarify it. So I think this is one of the challenges I have faced. But at the same time, I was very happy when my daughter a year ago started also engaging in a number of activities with the local authorities. Started writing not very perfect Slovak letters, and yet it worked. So it is good to tell the foreigners that you don't need to speak perfect Slovak before you're engaged, but equally, I was happy that the city is becoming more and more flexible, that is acceptable, and despite not having these perfectly written Slovak letters. So I think with these stories, I wanted to say there needs to be some spaces where the foreigners can find out what are the opportunities in town, what are the needs of the town, what is it a city wants to do and needs assistance with, so that they can also give their contribution, not only like how their lives can become easier, but also how they can contribute. And I think a good example that has helped me, it has been the ongoing learning spaces that the Baha'i community, for example, has created, and these are available in every city. So, and as you know, if you're familiar with it, within the Baha'i community, we don't have the concept of kind of being foreigner. The moment somebody moves to a city, it becomes part of that community. But these spaces helps to consult and hear about the issues. Another good space for me has been the Metropolitan Institute that has invited the foreigners, and I have been very happy to be part of it. The fairs that, for example, Milan Šimečka every year has organized and has given space to be able to meet other foreigners, but other local agencies and get to know them. And I think foreigners need to be welcomed, because for me, using the analogy of a school is like a child who is new and comes to a classroom, initially needs a bit of invitation and welcoming, and then they can fully join. So it's like a shy child in a playground at the beginning. Feels like this, but very soon, with a little bit of welcome and introduction, they can soon join, and they can be really an asset for the city. I just want to share an example perhaps that can work in every school, because I know SVEC organization, who is part of this forum, they had said that in every schools, for example, in the country, there are foreigners who are living there. In my school, we have 39 different nationalities, and one of the things we do is that every month 2 or 3 families are invited to come to the school and to present their cultures to the classrooms, and we even cook the food of that country. And this way we can really incorporate. After that, the engagement becomes a lot more engagement to those parents, and those are
Venus.
good examples. Yeah.
Venus, I'm very sorry, but we will have to cut
I
short
actually finished. Yes.
speech. Yes.
Yes.
Lebo máme veľmi málo času.
Yeah. Thank you.
Takže
Okay,
môžem
so
ospravedlňujem sa, Venus.
I'm really sorry, Eunice, but thank you very much for sharing with us your experience and for pointing out to the trust, which is very important to be built through participation, and to the barriers which the foreigners might change when they want to participate in their town.
Aj na to, že čo by malo byť úlohou vlastne
And
miest.
pointing out also to the tasks of the municipality, and then the identification of the human potential and its use. I would like to remind you that you can raise questions using Slido app. We will try to find some time at the end of this panel to answer your questions. And now I would like to give the floor to Juraj Hurný from the Metropolitan Institute of Bratislava, who is an expert on participative planning. And in his presentation, he will tell us more about the process of integrating of participating foreigners. Okay, so good afternoon. I will start my presentation.
Tak. Ja teda sa volám Juraj Hurný, som...
So my name is Juraj Hurný. I'm responsible for participative projects at the Participative Planning Office at the Metropolitan Institute Bratislava, and I would like to tell you more about the revitalization of the Grösling Spa in Bratislava and how the foreigners were involved in this process. So, at the beginning, I would like to start with this project being one of the key projects of the city to renew the historical spa, which is familiar to all the citizens of Bratislava, and participative process was also part of this project, which was behind the procurement, and we cooperated with the culture department in the city of Bratislava and also with the city library. It's important to say that we cooperated with the city library because the entire project or the renewal of the spa, we will not in the future. This will not be only spa as it is known to the older generation, maybe, but one of the departments of the city library will be moved to this spa. So that's the reason why the city library was invited to join the process. The context. So we have to also elaborate on that. This project was started in 2020, so a year mostly affected by the pandemic, and as the process was set at the beginning, we had to rework, or we had to change almost the entire project, all the activities, the PR activities stopped, and we are always in face-to-face contact with the public, and we had to find new ways how to communicate and keep the dialogue with the public. The participative process was based on focus groups, on organizing focus groups, and with a survey in the form of questionnaires. And the outcomes of these activities were used to specify the assignment for the architectural competition, and the final assignment was also prepared used on this participative process. So there are two ways how to engage the public, and this is what the foreigners are mentioned. So there was an online survey with questions whether they use City Library Bratislava or other libraries, and whether they use some SPA. And we had more than 2,000 respondents. We also translated the questionnaire into English. I will talk about this later, why we decided for the translation, but it was conducted merely online because there were more women participating in our questionnaire and in the age between 26 to 40. And the second thing we did was where the focus group in September 2020, and here once again the focus group specialized in foreigners was established, and we also established new focus groups which were composed of students, seniors, foreigners, and representatives of people with disabilities. And why do we do this? Because these issues are not considered so often. Well, it is not the standard public. These people are not the standard public we ask. So the baseline for the subject was, since the establishment of our office, inclusive planning is what we were focusing on, and we are still in the pilot project. We are trying out new things, new approaches, and Bratislava in the history, the participation with the public wasn't in charge, wasn't in responsibility of the municipality, but of various associations or organizations which replace this activity. And what we are trying to do is to include these activities in the city planning and to improve our project. So I think involvement of foreigners is closely related to the inclusive planning. The second reason why foreigners were chosen is that the history of the Brüsseling SPA is in 19th century, and Bratislava was a multicultural town in 19th and 20th century, and Slovak citizens were not only the biggest group that we had. There were German and Hungarian citizens as well. So this is the historical context, as the older generation might remember this SPA. So it was also closely connected to the multilingualism of Bratislava. It's one of the biggest projects of Metropolitan Institute, and that's why we decided to include the participation as well. And last but not least, our motivation was also our own curiosity, how the views of foreigners could be different from the way of operation or of libraries, and how they use our SPAs. So we wanted to compare their approaches or their attitudes with the approach of Slovak nationals. So the questionnaire was translated, and the focus group was intended for the foreign citizens. More than 2,000 respondents took part in the questionnaire. Almost 4% were respondents using Slovak version, English version. It might seem that they were not, the 4% is not enough, but we try to analyze this from different perspectives. How or why did only so few people took part, or there's just only 4%? I think that from our experience, how to target the foreign groups wasn't ideal, but maybe the unknown brand of Metropolitan Institute, which is still being shaped right now. Also, another reason might be that Grösling Spa is really a historical building in Bratislava. So maybe they also felt that they had to, or they wanted to engage in the questionnaire and to be part of it. So maybe they didn't, maybe the foreigners didn't know or didn't consider the Grösling Spa so important. And also the expats are not interested that much in engaging in such process. And maybe this group of foreigners is not used to be asked such questions, and that someone tries to engage them and involve them in the process. So when we compare the individual needs of respondents, the English respondents, we also the assumption was that Slovak is not their native or their mother tongue, because their approaches were different. So what are the outcomes of the project output? Considering the experience with City Library, people who do not speak Slovak or who use a different language do not visit libraries in Bratislava so often, and that could be one of the reasons why, when we ask about the reasons why they do not go to the libraries, they said the lack of English literature or literature in English language, because the workers at the library also didn't have sufficient English skills and were not able to communicate in English that well.
Zároveň, ale keď sme sa vlastne
literature available wasn't in English language. How the premises could be improved in the future. Also, we wanted to use experience from abroad, how the new library, our modern libraries could look like. Because these spa and wellness activities, it was more or less identical to the Slovak respondents, but here we wanted to appeal, we wanted to focus on the different space which could provide some meeting opportunities. So, library is not just a place where you want to borrow books, or it can be also used in a different way, and libraries can be also one of the places where foreigners could meet and be involved in the community. And the last thing, the way of communication, we use the official channels of the city. We also use Slovak Spectator and Facebook groups for foreigners in Bratislava. Even though these groups are really big, it was difficult to join these groups and to promote the questionnaires, but Milan Šimečka Foundation helped us really much with engaging the foreigners, considering the focus group. When we tried to organize the focus groups, I think it was thanks to Milan Šimečka Foundation that we were able to achieve or to involve the foreigners. So I think at the end of the day, we can still consider this outcome positive outcome, and what is also significant and positive for us is that the open questions in the questionnaire and in the focus groups, many people were thankful and thanked us for trying to communicate with them, and because they didn't have such experience before, and they were very thankful for the opportunity to be part of the project, even though they didn't have enough information about it. But the idea of a new premises in Bratislava was really nice to them. And this is a picture how the historical building looks like. You might know this. So thank you very much. I'm open to your questions.
Pekne pánovi Hurnému za túto
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurný, for your approach, for your presentation, and for the reflection on how it worked, what failed, what was a success, what was successful. Should you have any questions, please send them through the Slido application, and at the end we will have some time to answer them. Now we will go to Banská Bystrica, a partner city within the KapaCITY project, and Ms. Zuzana Gajdošíková, who works for the Municipal Office of the City of Banská Bystrica at the International Relations Department, will talk to us about her experience with the participation of foreigners in municipalities. So, Ms. Gajdošíková, you have the floor. Hello to everyone.
Zazdieľať prezentáciu, tak iba ak by ste mi dali vedieť, či ju vidíte.
Can you see it?
Ďakujem pekne.
Yes, thank you.
Takže ešte raz pekný deň vám všetkým. Volám sa Zuzana Gajdošíková a hlasím sa vám momentálne v Banskej Bystrici. Z toho, čo sme už mali možnosť dneska v priebehu celého dňa počuť, je veľmi vzácne, že cudzinci žijúci na Slovensku a aj v Banskej Bystrici majú záujem a chuť zapájať sa do vecí verejných a do vecí slúžiacich na chod samosprávy. No a ja by som si s vami rada pohovorila aj o tom, ako samospráva môže, alebo teda ako by chcela povzbudiť cudzincov na svojom území, aby naozaj participovali a aby sme o sebe vedeli čo najviac. Možno by som vám na začiatok predstavila to, ako sme my rozmýšľali v Banskej Bystrici, kým sme začali tvoriť takú našu internú stratégiu na podporu participácie cudzincov. A síce pozreli sme sa jednak na štatistiku cudzincov, ktorí u nás žijú, a zároveň vďaka vstupnej správe SVEKu, ktorú sme dostali v roku 2018, sme mali aký taký prehľad o tom, akí cudzinci a v akých počtoch u nás žijú. Keď sa pozriete sem, tak vlastne to podstatné, čo chcem poukázať, je veková štruktúra cudzincov, ktoré v Banskej Bystrici žijú. A tuto následne vidíme aj to, čomu sa venujú ich účel. Totižto na základe tej správy SVEKu sme zistili, že cudzinci, ktorí u nás žijú, ako keby neprekračovali komunity, v ktorých sa vyskytujú, tie komunity tvoriace či už rodinou, priateľmi alebo blízkym okolím, a tak aj pre majoritnú časť obyvateľstva, ale aj medzi iné skupiny cudzincov sú ako keby neviditeľní. Preto, keď sme ich chceli osloviť, stanovili sme si taký základný cieľ, že chceme vedieť, akí cudzinci u nás žijú a čomu sa venujú. Rovnako to, ak poznáme, čo cudzinci u nás robia, nám pomôže stanoviť si také ciele našej komunikačnej stratégie voči nim. Niekedy sme mali pocit, že ak sme chceli osloviť čo najväčšiu komunitu cudzincov u nás, bolo to ako keby podujatie pre všetkých, no zároveň pre nikoho. Oveľa oslovnejšie sa nám začalo javiť centralizovať našu pozornosť na rôzne skupiny, možno nie podľa krajiny pôvodu, ak to nebolo v tej chvíli nevyhnutné, ale možno na to, čomu sa u nás venujú, alebo prečo v Banskej Bystrici žijú. Začali sme vytvárať projekty, podujatia a možno materiály zamerané pre určitú skupinu, či už na základe povolenia alebo štúdia. Ak ste videli tie čísla predtým, tak vlastne v Banskej Bystrici majú na časť cudzincov práve kvôli štúdiu, kvôli povolaniu alebo kvôli živnosti. No a začali sme v tej sekcii povolania alebo štúdium komunikovať s odborníkmi alebo študentmi študujúci rôznu oblasť a ako keby tú interakciu smerovať na tú odbornú stránku. Zase, ak sme mali potrebu niečo komunikovať, prekladať, šíriť informáciu podľa krajiny pôvodu, využili sme fóra, ktoré združovali cudzincov žijúcich u nás práve na základe krajiny pôvodu, alebo teda jazyku, ktorým komunikovali. V istej fáze sme si uvedomili, že je dôležité vedieť o sebe a o všetkých aktéroch, ktorí v meste pôsobia a venujú sa cudzincom. A teda našou takou ambíciou pre budúcnosť je sieťovať konzuláty, inštitúcie, združenie, jazykové centrá či mimovládne organizácie, ktoré zastupujú občanov krajín, z ktorých cudzinci pochádzajú. No a takou treťou hlavnou alebo najviac viditeľnou oblasťou, v ktorej s cudzincami spolupracujeme, je kultúra, umenie. Tuto sú tie také klasické, najviac viditeľné a najviac odpropagovateľné aktivity ako napríklad vzdelávania, semináre, umelci a podobné záležitosti. A tu zároveň badáme aj takú najväčšiu potrebu cudzincov obrátiť sa na samosprávu ako takú. A mám na mysli povinnosti, ktoré si musia organizátori podujatí splniť voči samospráve. Opäť aj v tejto oblasti badáme dôležitosť linkovania a sieťovania všetkých aktérov u nás. Bystrica má to šťastie, že pôsobí tu veľa jazykových centier, jazykových škôl, kultúrnych spolkov a tak ďalej. A preto aj v tejto oblasti sa snažíme poskytovať ako taký dážnik pre čo najviac aktérov, aby sme teda zasiahli čo najväčšiu skupinu ľudí. Keď sme si vytipovali, že možno toto bude taká stratégia, ako komunikovať potreby samosprávy alebo vlastne aj aktuality z diania samosprávy, snažili sme sa tiež zvoliť si ako také, ja to možno volám také jadrové skupiny, alebo teda jadrové kontakty, ktoré nám pomôžu dostať sa aj ďalej medzi cudzincov, ktorí u nás žijú a možno ďalej získať väčší ten bazén kontaktov a väčšiu interakciu s cudzincami u nás. No a možno ešte také oficiálnené inštitúcie, ktoré v Banskej Bystrici pôsobia, ktoré sa venujú participácii cudzincov. Sú to poradné orgány primátora mesta Banská Bystrica. Už v predošlých prezentáciách sme sa zamýšľali nad tým, že či je dobré zahrnúť cudzincov do existujúcich orgánov samosprávy, alebo skôr možno vytvoriť poradné orgány alebo nejaké konzultačné orgány vyslovene pre cudzincov. My sme sa aktuálne rozhodli, možno aj pre tie čísla, ktoré v Banskej Bystrici nie sú zatiaľ až tak vysoké, ako keby pozvať cudzincov do už existujúcich zložiek samosprávy a ponúknuť prostredníctvom svojich zástupcov možnosť, aby teda svoje podnety, možno nejaké nápady, ale aj to, čím sa v každodennom živote stretávajú, tlmočiť na úrovni mesta, či už priamo pred vedením samosprávy, alebo pred komisiami, či inými odbornými útvarmi. No a takýmito poradnými orgánmi, s ktorými teda máme záujem ďalej spolupracovať v kontexte cudzincov, je napríklad Rada primátora mesta pre študentov, Rada primátora pre mimovládne neziskové organizácie alebo aj seniorov. Pravdou je, že korona nám zasiahla aj do tejto ambície, tým, že väčšina stretnutí momentálne prebieha online a viac menej sa selektujú podľa dôležitosti a možno nie sú na takej úrovni, ako by boli v predkoronovom a dúfajme, že čoskoro aj po koronovom období. Toto je taká ambícia, ktorú si chceme splniť v blízkej budúcnosti. Jednoducho cítiť tých cudzincov na tej každodennej báze, čo sa týka už existujúcich orgánov v meste. Čo je však zaujímavé a čo teda funguje aj v koronovom období, je priama účasť cudzincov pri aktuálnych otázkach a formovaní našich politík. Ak som spomínala, že študenti sú, respektíve, že cudzinci, ktorí u nás žijú, sú v veľkej miere študenti, tak sme sa zamýšľali nad tým, ako tento hlas, ako túto skutočnosť využiť v náš prospech. A teda poprosili sme Erasmus študentov, ktorí prišli na jeden či dva semestre do Bystrice, aby nám pomohli s tým, ako vnímajú Banskú Bystricu oni z pohľadu niekoho, kto tu tráví prvé nesmelé kroky. Jednoducho možno nehovorí jazykom, možno nemá také zázemie a možno vidí to, čo my v bežnom živote už vôbec nevnímame. No a formou dotazníkov sme ich poprosili o ich názor na také kľúčové otázky, ako je napríklad bezpečnosť v meste, doprava, kultúra, jazykové zručnosti, či už úradníkov, alebo možno zástupcov služieb, s ktorými prichádzajú do kontaktu. No a to nám tak jednak nastavilo zrkadlo a jednak možno upriamilo našu pozornosť smerom, ktorý sme dovtedy nebrali v úvahu. Rovnako podobným zámerom v veľmi nedávnej minulosti, priam až v súčasnosti, momentálne prebieha ešte stále táto aktivita, bolo vypracovanie dotazníkov cielených pre riaditeľov materských a základných škôl v zriaďovateľskej kompetencii mesta a zároveň aj pre rodičov detí cudzincov, ktorí u nás žijú. Veľká vďaka patrí CVEKu, ktorý nám so zostávaním týchto dotazníkov vo veľmi veľkej miere až úplne pomáhal. No a vlastne cieľom tohto dotazníka bolo poznať podmienky integrácie detí
know the
inštitúciách,
conditions of
ktoré mesto
integration
Banská
of
Bystrica vie
foreign
priamo
children
ovplyvniť,
in
pretože
institutions
povedali sme si, že chceme začať
that
od seba jednoducho,
do not
že
fall
začať pracovať na tom, na čom
under the competence
reálne
of
aj
the
máme
City of
nejaký
Banská
dosah a
Bystrica.
vieme
So
zmeniť
we
podmienky.
wanted to
Čiže
know
poznať
this
podmienky
reality in
integrácie
order
detí
to
z pohľadu
change the possible
riaditeľov alebo učiteľov, ktorí sa
state
stretávajú
of
s deťmi
affairs.
cudzincov
So
a
we
porovnať
wanted
ich
to know the opinion
následne
of
s tým,
headmasters
ako
of
proces
such schools
integrácie
that
vnímajú rodičia.
where
Vravím,
go
zber
children of
dotazníkov bol ukončený,
foreigners.
vyhodnotenie
So
práve prebieha, ale už teraz
we
teda
gathered
vidíme
the
asi,
answers
kde
from the
môžeme ešte ako
questioners. Now we
samospráva
are
pridať a
just
práve
about to
toto je
evaluate
možno
it.
jeden zo
And
spôsobov,
I think this is one of the
ako
ways
samospráva ako taká
possible
benefituje z participácie a chutí
to
cudzincov spolupracovať
to
a
get
zároveň
benefits from the
tiež
presence
ako
of foreigners
cudzinci
in Banská
vnímajú
Bystrica.
segmenty
And
každodenného
this
života,
way
ktoré
we
pre
can
nás ako
also
majoritné
know
obyvateľstvo
how foreigners
možno
feel
nevždy
in our country, how they
nevždy
perceive
reflektujeme tak, ako
many things,
reálne
because
sú.
sometimes we just do not
No,
think about them
korona nám
while they're
veľa
present
vecí
in our cities.
obmedzila a
Of course, the
presunula
pandemic
náš
has
život do
affected
úplne
us,
iných sfér.
and
Nie vždy na škodu,
many
ako
things
taký prípad
were changed.
pozitívnej spolupráce
Sometimes
cudzincov
we
a
can say
mesta
that it was
Banská
in a
Bystrica,
positive
alebo teda
way
samosprávy
because
vo
we had
všeobecnosti.
a positive
Ja osobne
cooperation in
vnímam
Banská
pomoc pri
Bystrica.
zvládaní
I
pandémie
think
u
that
nás. A
we
síce
also
veľmi dobre si všetci
received
pamätáme tie
assistance
dni, kedy
during the
sa
pandemic, during the
informácie a
different
nariadenia
waves
a
of a pandemic,
regule menili doslova
because
z hodiny na hodinu. A
at
jednoducho vtedy sme si uvedomili,
at
aké
the beginning
dôležité je
it was
dostať
very difficult
všetky
to cope with
informácie
constant change of
čo
regulations,
najrýchlejšie medzi čo najviac
legal
ľudí.
framework,
A práve
legislation,
toto
etc.,
bol
because we wanted to
moment,
get
kedy cudzinci
as much
jednak
information as
iniciatívne
possible
a jednak
and very
možno
fast.
aj
And
na základe
some of the
výzvy
foreigners
samosprávy
were also
cez tie jadrové
took the
kontakty vedeli
initiative
veľmi efektívne
and
a veľmi rýchlo jednak
took a
šíriť
very
tieto oznámy
proactive
nariadenia,
way because
pomáhali nám s
they
prekladmi a
distributed
tlmočeniami,
the information, they helped us with
vedeli
the
pomôcť
translation
cudzincom,
and
ktorí sa na nich
interpretation of
obracali, ak
different
niečo nebolo
different
jasné, alebo ak sa
information,
potrebovali
and they also helped
nakontaktovať na
other foreigners
samosprávu.
when dealing
Ďalším
and
príkladom
when
bolo
struggling
to,
with
že
difficulties.
študenti
And
ako
then
veľmi
another
početná
example
skupina vyjadrili takú požiadavku na to, či by mohlo byť zriadené odberné miesto pri
asked us
celoplošnom
if
testovaní,
we could
aby jednoducho
establish
nemuseli
and
blúdiť
set
po
a
celom
mobile
meste tým, že
sample
to bolo v
testing
novembri, ale
site.
niektoré boli naozaj iba pár dní, pár týždňov.
Some were established only
Nakoniec
for
im
a
aj
couple
bolo
of weeks and a
vyhovené
month, and
a veľmi sa to
finally we
cenilo aj na
established such
úrovni
mobile
samosprávy,
sample
ale myslím
testing
si, že teda aj
site,
na
and it
úrovni
was
cudzincov
very
ako
praised
takých.
by many
Čiže
foreigners and
naozaj
and
ukazuje
also
sa
our
nám, že
municipality was
tá
happy
cielená
with our work.
komunikácia
So
je
I
jedným
think
z
having
kľúčov
a targeted
úspechu.
communication
Samozrejme,
is one of the keys to success
to, že sme
in
začali
this field.
otvárať tú poličku s názvom participácia alebo teda
So
zapájanie
since we
cudzincov
began to broaden and
života
to
samosprávy,
improve
nám
the
otvorilo
concept
mnohé
of
výzvy, s ktorými sa
participation
chceme
of
popasovať
involvement
v
of foreigners, we also
Medzi také najakútnejšie patrí spájanie a synergia medzi komunitami cudzincov a samosprávou ako takou,
for
v
instance, to
zmysle
create
posilnenie
synergy,
pocitu
to create a
vzájomného
synergy
partnerstva,
between
aby
foreigners and our
cudzinci
municipality. We
vnímali
want to
samosprávu
achieve
ako
that
svojho
foreigners
partnera, ako niekoho, kto im
see
chce
us
pomôcť a
as a
možno vie
partner,
im
as
mnoho
someone
vecí
who can help
zjednodušiť.
them and
A
who can
zároveň, aby sme my
make their life
úradníci
easier. And
nevnímali
also we want
cudzinca
our
ako
employees, we
ako
also
niekoho,
want
kto
that our
možno
employees
pridáva
do not
prácu,
look at
alebo
foreigners that
prináša niečo, čo
they
je
are
mimo
represent a
hranice nášho
burden or
komfortu.
there is something
Radi by sme
which is
viacej využili
outside
pozíciu
our
kultúrneho
zone of
mediátora,
comfort,
čo bol
and we would
inštitút
like to
zriadený
use
práve
also
projektom KapaCITY vo vzťahu ku
the
cudzincom.
figure of a
No
language
a
mediator,
možno
which was
taká úloha
established
na
to
úrad
help us
dovnútra
when
je
working with
pamätanie na
foreigners,
cudzincov pri
and
tvorbe
we
politík,
also
pri
want to
podávaní
we do not want to
informácií,
forget
výstupov
about the
samosprávy v
presence
jazykoch
of
komunít,
foreigners
aby
when
jednoducho
we are creating and
pri
making
každom kroku,
policies.
ktorý realizujeme, sme
So
ako si
when
automaticky
we
mysleli aj na
adopt
tých,
any kind of
ktorí
step,
možno
any kind
nerozumejú
of measures,
jazyku,
we
ktorí
have
sa
to
nachádzajú v
think about
špecifických
those who do not understand
situáciách
our
a ktoré
language,
sú možno
who
v
find
istej
themselves
forme
in
svojho života
difficult
zraniteľní
situations,
alebo
who can feel
zraniteľnejší než to
vulnerable or
majoritné
who
obyvateľstvo.
can feel more
No a ďalej by sme
vulnerable
radi
than
teda
the
pokračovali v
majority of us.
identifikovaní a
And then we
nastaveniach
would like to
procesov
continue to
uľahčujúcich
identify
integráciu
and
cudzincov,
to
ako už bolo
set
ráno spomenuté, či už
processes to
prehlbovaním programov
improve
miestnych
life of
politík,
foreigners, would like
miestnej
to deepen and
legislatívy
enhance
a
the
podobných
local policies
dokumentov.
and improve strategic
Ďakujem
materials.
veľmi pekne.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Za približenie toho, čo mesto Banská Bystrica robí v téme
Thank you
participácie.
too, you, Ms. Gajdošíková, for participation, for demonstrating your participation. It could be really beneficial for the entire community when the dialogue is open and when you can use their help in the situations as today. I think we should also underscore that the city realized that foreigners are an invisible group, and since from this moment you started to change this perception or change this fact. You also mentioned cultural mediators, and more on this will tell us our colleague from Human Rights League, Barbora Meššová, who will tell us more about how they worked with cultural mediators. Thank you. Could you please start the presentation? Okay, so good afternoon. What we mentioned earlier that is that when we mapped the situation, we have realized that the motto which was used throughout the project was that the municipality doesn't know its foreigners, and foreigners do not know the municipality. So cultural mediators were the solution we tried to offer as a model of helping the communities or the foreigners. So we decided for a model of employing cultural mediators within the project. What you can see on the screen is a campaign at the beginning of the project. So we created these postcards and we tried to share them within the municipality. They were also connected to the survey we did to find out how foreigners view our municipality and what are their basic needs. It also helped us find new contacts for the foreigners, so the people who filled out the questionnaires and shared their needs, and also, of course, when they agreed, they were included in the mailing list, which we through cultural mediators and municipalities sent in a newsletter about the municipality and what's new in the municipality. What's the most important part is that thanks to this campaign and this research of ours in the communities in Bratislava, Trnava, Banská Bystrica or Košice as well. Of course, in Košice, self-governing region was quite a challenge because it's a large area, large territory. So we found foreigners from communities living in the municipalities in question. Throughout the project, there were 14 people involved in the role of cultural mediators, and these were from 10 different countries. Of course, from Serbia, Iran, Vietnam, USA, San Salvador, Armenia, and the last country was Slovakia, because it happened to us that we had some among the cultural mediators, there were also people who were citizens in Slovakia, also with mixed identity, for instance. So we tried to find cultural mediators in different ways in Bratislava, Trnava, Banská Bystrica, and Košice as well. And these mediators helped us in our goals. So considering the some job description of the cultural mediators, it's a person who can penetrate the community and can have impact on the community. So the cultural mediators involved in our project helped us with interpretation and translation, and they also helped the municipality, as mentioned by Ms. Gajdošíková in Banská Bystrica, so the culture mediators were very active, and they also helped us to find out the needs of the foreigners. For instance, considering the Slovakia-wide testing we had. And the second part of the motto that the foreigners didn't know the municipality was demonstrated also because at first we needed to get the information to the foreigners, because when we approached the foreigners and tried to find out what needs they have and what they are interested in, so there were long lines and immigration policies and problems with the residents. So this is not the area where the municipality can be of assistance, but another part which we tried to address during the trainings was to help the municipalities to get to know the municipality. Some of them also have a right to vote or a right to be elected, and in the regional election, and also what are the tasks and competences of the municipality. So just in a nutshell, I will go through these pictures I have in the presentation. Okay, so we were meeting in Košice with foreigners, and we talked about Košice region, that Košice is a city and there are boroughs in Košice. What are the jobs or responsibilities of these boroughs? We tried to find out their needs, and we showed them our findings. We also met in Banská Bystrica and other cities, in Bratislava as well, Trnava.
Banskej Bystrici a teda vo všetkých zapojených.
And in all the involved municipalities. What's important is that we used we were meeting various groups for foreigners, but we wanted to solve the issue that they do not know the municipality and the responsibilities of the municipality. So thank you, Basha, very much for this very short summary of how you cooperated with culture mediators. Now we can move on to creating platforms for foreigners in municipalities, and our colleague Nina Galanská from the Milan Šimečka Foundation will tell you more.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. So I would like to talk to you about very briefly about the participation of foreigners in municipalities. So very briefly, it's from the guidebook drafted by the Center for the Research of Ethnicity and Culture. It is based on participative methods. We use questionnaires. It was mentioned also by Ms. Gajdošíková. We also had roundtables with foreigners mentioned by Basha. We also had neighborhood meetings and consultation stand that's below the left. We had a festival, soup festival organized, and we also had public audition, sorry, and we also established a working group in this field. In 2019 and 2021, we organized several meetings in order to establish informal platforms composed of committees, etc., at the level of municipalities. Like it was mentioned by Basha, we had a meeting with foreigners in Košice, where we presented the possibilities of the creation of a platform for foreigners. We will mention the lunch the mayor of Bratislava had with foreigners, and we also organized a meeting with foreigners in Trnava. We did not establish any formal group of people, but we were talking about the involvement, about the cultural mediator, about the role of a cultural mediator with the municipality representatives. In 2020, we managed to organize meetings with foreigners in Bratislava, which were like a follow-up of the lunch we had with the mayor of Bratislava. We wanted to involve foreigners in the drafting of the strategic material for Bratislava, and we want to also use these contacts to for the setting up of for the creation of informal platforms formed by foreigners, and we would like to create a space where foreigners could consult several issues, where we could meet with representatives of our municipalities. And these platforms should be a space for the participation at local level, and it has to be based on the involvement of foreigners. Like it was already mentioned, this platform is already, or these meetings seem to be very optimistic in Bratislava. And in 2021, this year, we had a similar meeting in Banská Bystrica with Ms. Gajdošíková, who represents the Municipal Office of Banská Bystrica. The potential of Banská Bystrica has to do with the participation and with meetings with foreigners, like it was presented by Ms. Gajdošíková. As to the platform of foreigners in Bratislava, in an ideal situation, it could be a kind of an advisory body. It could be a place for for the provision of information in all the available languages, and it could be an advocacy group or a lobby group. And we need to define the identity of such a platform, because it has to deal with foreigners, and all the persons involved have to be cultural mediators, NGOs, and civil society organizations. Very briefly, challenges and opportunities of creation of platforms at local level. Why is it important to create such platforms? We have already heard that today. Why to create platforms for foreigners? Because we need to increase the participation of foreigners and their involvement in the democratic process and the integration policy making. And we have to bear in mind that such bodies that already exist are not strong enough. That's why this platform has to come from below. In Bratislava, we would like to change some policies that are already existing. That's why we need to have a good cooperation with Bratislava. We need to have members who are appointed, and we need to have financial resources which are sufficient for the functioning of our activities, for carrying out our activities. What is the goal of the creation of such platforms and advisory groups? We would like to improve communication between foreigners and other inhabitants, other citizens at local level. And thank you very much for your attention. I think we do not need to add anything. Since we are a bit behind the schedule, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Zachary Gallant from the German city of Unkel, who deals with the integration. Deals with the topic of the integration of foreigners, and he's going to talk to us about his experience about the platforms and advisory bodies that already exist in Germany. Thank you very much, Zachary. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This has been really wonderful. Yeah, so first I want to say how wonderful it is that you guys are holding this workshop. Western and Northern European societies tend to be rather self-satisfied and have a feeling of superiority over other places and a feeling that they have nothing to learn from outside. And the invitation to speak here shows a willingness to learn from the mistakes and also successes, but I would say mostly mistakes from other places that have undertaken these kinds of efforts. And yeah, it's excellent that you guys are attempting to do this as well. My name is Zachary Gallant. I am the Vice Chairman of the Migrants Advisory Council of the region of Neuwied in Germany in the Rhineland, and a member and one of the people who called into existence the same body on the local level at the municipality of Unkel. I have a number of things to go through here. I'm going to go through them very quickly. But first I wanted to say that you are incredibly lucky as you build whatever you choose to build, that you have Gregory Fabian here, because I have to say much less of what I intended to say, because he covered so much of the actual protocol of how these bodies are created. I have lived for the past nearly 14 years in Europe. I've lived for the past 7 years in the small town of Unkel. And yeah, I have been a migrant in the Balkans, a migrant in Germany, and the experience of not having a voice in the making of laws inspired me to get involved here. We went through in Unkel the processes that Gregory laid out. I hope that everyone who's involved in or interested in creating such a body gets Gregory's slides and all the documentation that he put forward. We made a number of failures. It was expressed by the local government as a representative body, and it turned out to be a consultative body, which was a huge disappointment to migrants. And this is something that should be very, very clear from the very first moment. Partisan representation is very much present in our body, where it should not be. Parties appoint their own representatives to a body, and they have their own partisan feelings towards it. What else? Yeah, in the actual formation of the body, there was very little migrant input. I was one of 2 migrants, and the rest were politicians, which meant that migrants were less interested in engaging with the body itself, as they did not have an initial. So look at those documents, read through those documents carefully and take them to heart, because they can make your work stronger. Yeah, nothing about us without us is really very important. But this is not abnormal, at least not in Germany. I founded a migrant integration NGO based on neighbors of different backgrounds working together as equals. And over a short time, it was co-opted by Germans, and migrant voices were pushed out. It became an action on behalf of migrants and not alongside new neighbors. And the attempt to build this advisory or consultative body went along very, very similar lines. It started with strong migrant presence and quickly tapered out into a bureaucratic German effort. Please don't do that. Let's see. I talked with Alena about what to talk about. It went for an hour. I'm supposed to do it in less than 10 minutes. I'm going to do my best. In the German economy experienced an economic miracle in the 1950s and 60s, and it only experienced it because of migrants. And these migrants were not expected to stay, were expected to live in little ghettos and then get out. Many of them did not, many of them stayed. By lack of integration policies, a parallel society developed, and many very expensive problems came up because of this. In the late 1980s, after some 30 years of these issues, multiple regions of Germany attempted to expand voting rights to non-citizen residents to bring people in. These attempts were struck down by the German Federal Constitutional Court on October 31st of 1990 in a ruling that interpreted the phrase "the people" in the German Basic Law to mean specifically German citizen residents. The EU has been very useful in expanding rights to actual EU citizens who are not German citizens. However, this leaves a significant portion of German migrants still unable to vote. A number of really good NGOs evolved in order to bring migrant engagement in. but were somewhat successful, but still people's democratic voices were not lifted. The situation led to certain clever and well-intentioned bureaucrats to create migrant advisory committees. I had a PowerPoint. I'm scrapping the PowerPoint because there's just too much content. The migrants advisory committees were originally called Ausländerbeiräte. That means the Foreigners Council. What that meant was that people with a foreigner's background or a migration background were represented on these councils. It has recently shifted to become councils for migration and integration, which also means that non-migrants and anyone with an interest in integration and migration gets to have a voice on this council, which means it is no longer a voice for migrants. It has its own use, but it is not what it was advertised as. They've been utilized in major cities with large migrant populations in Germany since the 1980s, increasingly popular. And the town of Unkel, which has a population, the entire municipality has 13,000 people, implemented their own because they thought it would be a good idea, not because they were mandated to. There are really good things about these consultative bodies. They can allow for two-way communications. I know that Alena told me about the issue of Serbian guest workers being very isolated from the rest of society. One of the benefits of these bodies is that they allow communication between the state and these isolated communities. Migrants who choose to use these councils can have their concerns heard and reported to the affiliated government. And yeah, this has, thank you for the time is almost up. Good. Coronavirus was a really useful example of how these can be used. The council put out all of the necessary information in 7 different languages, and it has really fought the spread of the virus among migrant communities. It's been very useful. At the other side, it institutionalizes certain racist aspects of Germany, and I'm sorry that my time is almost up because there's so much more to say. The last thing I want to say is if you implement one of these bodies, it is, you need to support your advocates, you need to support your NGOs, you need to support your pre-existing activist structure, because this body sometimes eats the other things. It's important that this is one element of a healthy conversation with migrants and a healthy society. It is not the migrants platform. And on that point, the Migrants Advisory Council can increase competition between NGOs and organizations like those that Zuzana listed, as they jockey for power and position in the migrant hierarchy and access to the state power of the receiving community via this advisory council. Any such body should come with a local effort to support cooperation and friendship, not competition between migrant NGOs. Thank you. There's so much more. I'd be glad to talk to anyone who wants to do this about our experiences, and yeah, good luck.
Ďakujeme veľmi pekne, Zachary. Ďakujeme veľmi pekne za toto zhodnotenie aj za takú reflexiu toho, že nie vždy všetko všade.
Thank you very much for your evaluation, for your input, Zachary, because we know that many different places face challenges. Zachary and his experience will form part of our guidebook as examples of a good practice. So this will be this will form part. This will be included with other conclusions from our project. Then we will move on with Sabina Esp from the Swedish City of Östersund. She works with foreigners, and she will present us a different participative approach when working with foreigners, and she is going to talk to us about the creation of integration services. Sabina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just a question, would you still want me to do the 10 minutes or should I try to shorten it?
Ak by bolo možné to skrátiť.
If it's possible to shorten it a little bit, that would be great, but the maximum could be 10 minutes, if it's possible.
I'll do my best. Thank you. My name is Sabina Esp. I live and work in the city of Östersund in Sweden. I'm a qualified social worker, and I've worked directly with migrants here in Östersund for about 10 years. Today, I work for the local parish of Östersund for the Church of Sweden. And previously, I've worked for the municipality, and one of my roles was that I was a part of our management team concerning integration services. So I would like to give some context to my city of Östersund. We have a population of about 60,000 inhabitants, and we're located approximately halfway up the country. It takes us 7 hours by car to go to our capital of Stockholm, and our nearest neighboring city is Sundsvall, which is 200 kilometers away. So we're located in this vast land of forests and mountains, which entails many challenges, and one of these is depopulation, where many young people choose to leave our area and move to the south of Sweden and our bigger cities. So therefore, our city and all the municipalities surrounding it are doing different kind of efforts trying to increase the population and moreover to make people actually want to stay. So through this, integration has been a part of our growth strategy for many years now, and we want people to move to our side of the country, and we want them to stay here, living and working. So some of the services and support given to migrants in our community are regulated by national laws and policies. So for instance, migrants who's been granted residence permits because of refugee status are offered a 2-year establishment plan, which includes education in the Swedish language, in society, and also in support in accessing the labor market. The participation of these activities are necessary for those who wish to receive governmental benefits. But this education is also open to all foreigners, even though not everyone are eligible for the state benefits. So another regulated services is that the municipalities are to provide housing support during this 2-year establishment plan. And the regulated services are locally performed by different authorities at governmental or municipality level. The way municipal responsibilities are performed varies due to municipal autonomy. And as I mentioned previously, in Östersund, we have the perspective of integration being a part of our growth strategy. So how we've come to organize and perform these services can differ from a municipality that might regard it more as a humanitarian aid. In practice, this means that the support we give regarding housing, for example, often means that we give them a permanent accommodation right from the start. We want them to stay in our community also when their 2-year establishment plan is over. And we also make efforts in providing a personal contact between the migrant and the municipality. A core unit in this is our Municipal Integration Services, which is a team of employees that both work with the mandatory services regulated by law, but also several missions independently decided upon the municipality, and a lot of collaboration with civil society. They work closely with the migrants as well as they work on policy making. However, since integration is included in the growth strategy, the overall mission neither it starts nor it ends there. I think it was Gregory who was talking previously on the importance that this kind of effort goes into all levels in a municipal. So together we're trying to work on how to reach the different targets, which also involves a lot of collaboration, and internally within the city and the municipal, and externally with other actors such as civil society, something that Zach was mentioning as well, the importance of. One area where there are exciting methods being explored just now as we speak is models used for civic participation, where migrants is a part of several of our city's target groups. And so in Sweden, we have a tradition of participating in society through different associations, whether it's sports or culture or politics. Authorities also have a tradition on asking about people's experiences and needs through different kind of questionnaires. But through investigations, many municipalities and the government and also our city has learned that they want to become better at understanding the needs of citizens, and also to explore how to connect needs with the opportunities to improve. So the city itself can't solve all the needs that the citizens have and that the society have, but rather how can the city create space for different parts of the society to actually meet and discuss together and to create progress together. So rather than just, handing over a list for the authorities that we need this and this and this done, how can the authorities create spaces where different citizens can discuss these needs and see, okay, so I can do this, who can help me on this? And, it leads to a company who can do this or an association who can do that. And the municipal is just, holding the threads, okay? So for a couple of years now in our city, we've tried out something that they call civic dialogue, which concerns different areas. And at the moment, there's a civic dialogue performed in a specific neighborhood that we have, where especially youth have felt excluded from society. It's also a neighborhood where there's many migrants who live. And practically representatives from the municipality and other actors, they go there and they go to different places. They go to the town square and they go to the supermarket, they can go to the school and they start talking to people. They want to talk to people who live there and listen to their needs and their experiences. And from there can be different outcomes, and this would just be the start. So the goal would be to create these areas where needs and ways to improve can meet and talk directly. And the purpose of this is to increase the trust in our democracy. And I think that where efforts made of migrants' participation, it's performed at many different levels, but it's important not to let bureaucracy be an obstacle, which is often the case, at least in Sweden. So we need to find ways to interact and to talk to each other, and also to pay respect to that conversation and to pay respect to that dialogue. By taking the actual content further and not letting it stop with just a conversation. Thank you.
Za tento skvelý príspevok do diskusie.
Thank you very much for your input. So this would be the end of our panel on participation of foreigners, and this is the conclusion of the first day of the conference. Thank you very much to all the people, all the participants, and the time is up, but we haven't covered all the topics, certainly, so there would be a lot to discuss. We have received also some very interesting questions at this panel. Unfortunately, we do not have time to answer them here and now, but we've decided to collect the question for the 2 days, and we will try to answer them subsequently, and we will post them on our website or Facebook page. So certainly you will have access to the answers. I would like to thank you all for being with us here today. I would also like to thank all the speakers for finding time in their schedule to join us and to share their expertise and experience and their point of view on the topics which we covered today at the conference. I would also like to thank the technical staff, which allowed us to, or enabled us to have such an online format. We wouldn't be certainly able to do it on our own. So thank you very much. We are looking forward to see you tomorrow. We'll start again at 9:30. Tomorrow we will focus on communication, the communication of migration to the outside, how the municipalities could communicate, and on the other hand, the communication with the foreigners and providing information. So this is the area which is underestimated. We have a very interesting tests. We will have interesting conversations and discussions. So join us tomorrow. We'll be looking forward to you, and we wish you nice evening. And thank you very much. See you tomorrow.